Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Today I'm going to talk about what is my dream. I get a lot of questions about this in Russian, like what are your goals usually? And that's cool and stuff, and I think that dreams and goals can coincide, but I don't think that always means that they are exactly the same thing. Yeah, this is going to be my tea time video. I've switched to drinking tea instead of coffee, as I mentioned. Yeah, trying to quit all the vices. I also am having this thing where if I wake up, even if I feel like it's not time to wake up, it's like my brain's already like, you have 5 million things to do. You need to wake up and do all of them now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this reminds me when I was in high school. And like, or even just like my earlier days of being in a university, even though I feel like I am under significantly less stress, or I don't know if it's just I'm older, so I learned how to manage the stress better. So it doesn't hit me quite the same way. I'd say probably a lot more of my stress comes from people interactions. And I don't mean that in like a I'm autistic kind of way. I mean that in like a my family's been stressing me out, obviously. So that's kind of different. But I guess, one thing I want to talk about today is just like this idea of manifesting things, because people really do believe in this, and I think to some extent I've always kind of covertly believed in this, but then I also have, I'm not even going to say a healthy amount, it's definitely an unhealthy amount of skepticism and cynicism, really. We're going to use the word cynicism here, like I'm going to put that out here. But I'm going to tell the story of my one friend who I went to Rutgers with. And so she was this Russian girl, and after she had graduated, I was still doing whatever, studying in Kyrgyzstan or whatever I was doing, not graduating, as usual. And because I was basically a student, and I'm still a student, right? I haven't stopped being a student. The difference is I'm a student with a full-time job now. Finally, that happened at age 28. But anyway, so this friend went to go work on Wall Street, and I was like, oh, I never knew you wanted to work on Wall Street. Like, I met up with her in New York City, after, and I still meet up with her, like once a year probably, and that's like the level of friendship I feel comfortable with. I've been trying to explain this to people, and for some reason people think this is really weird, so I'm kind of curious to know if anybody who watches this also thinks that it's appropriate to see your friends, and I'm not talking like, okay, for a while I had like 3 best friends. I'm no longer best friends with one of those best friends just because I was like, I don't feel like it, to be honest. But out of those 2 best friends, it's like, I know I can kind of hit them up at any time if I really am feeling terrible. Either that or I do talk to some family members. I'd say a couple of my family members are like my best friends too. But other than that, like I do still feel like I'm pretty close friends with people. Like I'm very open. They're very open with me. Like we know each other. There's a good rapport. Like I've been friends with them. I have friends now I've been friends with for like 10 years, and I like don't even realize how much the time has flown. And maybe I'm only seeing that, well, COVID was kind of weird, you couldn't really see everybody you wanted to see. But still, so I really will see people like once a year, and it feels like a lot of people don't believe that you can be friends with somebody if you only see them once a year, and I just don't understand why. And like, yeah, I try to text people here and there, but I mostly try to get together with people face to face because I feel like that interaction's a lot deeper. I mean, I still talk to people using my phone, I just don't like to. I guess there's that. I'm also like at this point a lot more protective over my time because there's just not a lot of it because of all the 5 bajillion things I'm trying to do and figure out at once. But anyway, yeah, so I guess that's kind of part of it is, I like having only a few really, really close people in my life, and then the rest of everybody, like, I still feel close enough with them, like, we're good friends, but I don't particularly like a lot of volume of interaction with people, and part of this is probably because I'm sort of, like, back in survival mode right now. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to work out, like, financially in my life, or career-wise, or academically, or personally, like, whatever, there's just a lot going on. So this idea of having friends, like, oh, this is going to sound sad, but it feels very juvenile in a way because, the reality is, like, people get older, they, like, get married and have kids, they have families, and then, like that's, and you're working, and that's a lot of what you're spending your time doing, and, like, maybe that's not my exact situation, but, like, the amount of responsibility that I feel like I have right now to try and do a bunch of things I'm doing, which partially is my fault, okay, I'm not going to deny that, feels like having, like, 10 kids sometimes. Now, I know that's not going to be perceived well, because, I don't know what that's really like, but having constant different jobs you're trying to like, do, and then also worrying about moving, and then like, I'm pretty sure like my one goal in life is to never have to move, like at some point, like very American of me, but I can just be like my grandparents and travel and whatnot, or I can be a snowbird. I actually want to do that. Interesting. This must be an advertisement for a dentist. Okay, cool. So, what are my dreams? That's kind of what I want to talk about today. So my point is, I found this friend, like, I found it kind of weird that she was like, oh, I want to work on Wall Street, and I never told anybody. And I'm like thinking, like, why? Because I've had the opposite approach my entire life. If I want to do something, I just tell everybody that that's what I want to do. I don't know why I do this. I don't know if it's sort of it makes me accountable in some way. And I do try to set somewhat realistic goals, right? Like, I don't really, which is kind of the thing I was talking. So, like, my aunt gave me this idea for this manifesting your dreams thing. And I'm like, well, this is kind of a weird thing because, like, there's a difference between a dream and a goal, right? And that's what we started talking about. And goals, a lot of times, are, like, much more realistic, whereas a dream, it's a dream for a reason, right? I don't think that means that your dreams can never come true, but I think we need to be a little bit more realistic about the frequency with which they can come true. Let's put it that way. All right, so with NASA, like, you know, I went around telling people, like, this is what I want to do. And I remember one friend saying to me, like, the reason why sometimes you'll say things to other people is, like, you're trying to convince yourself that's true. And, like, I think that's also true, right? Like, me trying to make, like, major life decisions and work them out with other people, whether that's, like, friends or family or a therapist or whoever, or on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure I do that as much here. Well, maybe, no, I probably do. Somebody wrote me one time, and I do repeat this. It's like, this channel is more for yourself than for us. And I'm like, yeah, it's for me and whoever wants to watch it. And, you know, one time I'm like, I feel like quitting. And somebody's like, but this will be a cool time capsule to look back on. And I was like, no, that's true. Like, fun fact, I actually have diaries, like personal diaries dating back to 2005. 20 years worth of my life written down. That's kind of cool. But now I've kind of switched it. No, I still keep a diary, but like I still do this too. Because as I always try to explain on here, this is a very polished version of myself, which I know nobody believes because I'm so open and honest, but like, no, actually. Okay, there's a lot more in this Pandora's box that I'm not opening online. So there's that. But yeah, so, you know, with NASA, I went around telling everybody I wanted to work at NASA. They heard about it for, like, hold on. I started working at NASA in 2017. I decided I wanted to work at NASA in 2014. So there were, like, 3 years where people are, like, hearing about me wanting to work at NASA. I'm dealing with comments from my family about, oh, you don't want a high-profile job, or you're not smart enough to work at NASA. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I just, like, kept trying anyway. I, like, didn't care. So, you know, some of these things that I want, like, people can try to shoot down your dreams and ideas, and, like, let them. It doesn't matter. Like, that's their shade to throw at you. But, like, within reason, I do believe people can kind of do whatever they want. And I think one of my biggest dreams, and one of the reasons why, you know, if this stays this way, that I really want to get Finnish citizenship at some point, is I really have always wanted to get an engineering degree. And the reason why I didn't do engineering is, like, my dad didn't let me. Like, I have no other way of explaining it except for that, right? Like, my dad was my beneficiary throughout my college years. Like, he more or less kind of, you know, decided what I was going to study. Like, I got to pick which specialization of business I was going to do, but, like, I had to study business. And my brother had to study engineering. And guess what? He didn't want to, and he dropped out. So we have together, I think my brother and I, a little bit of resentment about the fact that, like, my dad was like, you have to do this and you have to do this. I used to joke that, like, my dad was secretly an Asian parent. If you're American, you'll get what that means. Or even if you're not, maybe you'll still get it, because I think that's a unanimous Asian person thing. The parents put a lot of pressure on the kids with school. But yeah, so the ironic part is my brother dropped out of being an engineer and became a social worker, and then I'm doing something more technical. We're going to put strong air quotes there, than he is, right? Like, I work with data and, like, I do some programming, even though I'm bad at it, right? So maybe if I'm bad at programming, I shouldn't necessarily do engineering, but if it's free and if I keep failing classes, it doesn't matter. So yeah, part of it is, like, IQ-wise, maybe I am a little bit too dumb to try to do engineering. I'm going to be pretty honest with that, but I think that I could compensate with it for hard work. And I don't really care if it takes me 10 years to get a degree. It's just something I'd like to accomplish before my life ends. And as I say, unfortunately, everybody in my family has lived to, like, 95, so there's still a lot of years left. That's like 60 years. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about it. Okay. Like, like, let's be honest, that's a lot of work. I always quote, dying is easy, living is hard. Like, living is hard. Okay. So engineering degree is, like, really at the top of the list, even though that's, like, a very distant future item, because I need, like, time and money, probably. Although if I'm doing it in Finland, not necessarily the money part, but the time, and time is money, right? The American saying. Maybe it's never we're saying, but it's definitely very American. All right, so one thing is an engineering degree, as dumb as that sounds. Another thing that I talked about briefly yesterday was like wanting to own an $800,000 house. All right, that's just an arbitrary number, but very specifically I described like I want it to be like near woods. I want it to also not be in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of like a contradiction, but you know, that's basically the house that I grew up in, so that's kind of why I have that standard and I liked it, right? I think the hard part is when people try to tell you what they think you like and you're like, I don't like that, right? Like, so my host brother yesterday asked me about different states, and he's like, how many states have you been to? And then I counted and it was like 35. And I was like, the only ones I haven't been to are really like truly in the Midwest and Alaska. Now I've been to Hawaii, so there's that. But I'm just like, the way I describe it, I'm like, I just hate every state more than I hate New Jersey. Like, I'm not like a United States lover. I'm not a state lover. Like, there are no states I really liked being in, and I could tell you all the reasons all day long why I don't like them. But it doesn't really matter. People are going to keep suggesting, well, maybe this, maybe that. You know, my mom is like, you're lucky that you have a remote job so you could just move somewhere cheaper. Yeah, well, the places that are cheaper, there's a reason they're cheaper, and people don't want to live there because they suck. It's so rude, but like, it's how I feel, you know, and feelings sometimes are kind of rude. So yeah, I think that like I do want to have a house and a yard, and at some point, yeah, but I think that's also a way later goal. Like, these are the two like very distant future goals. I think that the more pertinent goals right now are like career advancement and finishing my PhD at some point, and then also, you know, I kind of had a very honest discussion with myself about like, I do like traveling. I don't think I want to travel as much as I have in the last like year or two, but I would like to travel probably like twice a year, and I would probably still like to do my bizarre Finland-US combination for as long as that's sustainable. And I started thinking about, well, how is that sustainable, right? So I already have an apartment in Finland. You know, that's really cool. That was a dream I wrote down on a piece of paper, and literally like less than a year, no, it was more than a year. Hold on, when did I start trying to look for apartments? Maybe it was like, it was February 2023, and then pretty much by February 2020, hold on, it wasn't 2023. It was when I graduated. What year did I graduate? Yes, it was February 2023, and then by February 2024, I was closing on an apartment. That was cool. Like, how'd that happen? I don't know. That goal I had set much more distant in the future, so that was really cool. The, like, timetable execution on that was amazing. Don't even know how it happened. It's like, I look back still, and it's like a mystery. Don't understand. Okay, so then the other thing that's going on right now is I really want to move out, but I want to own something. And so right now, there's an opportunity for me to buy something that's super cheap. Why is it so cheap? I don't know, but it's actually in this complex that I lived when my parents were getting divorced, and then we were living with my dad. I hated living in these apartments, I'm going to be honest with you, because mostly my brother would watch TV on Saturday mornings, and it was too close to like this really tiny room in which I was sleeping that didn't even have walls that went all the way up. It was like this weird small built-in office. And then I'm just like, I like every day I was like, Daddy, can we move into a house? Like, I just want a playroom, because I was like playing with dolls at this point. And I played with dolls in the dining room. Like, I didn't like being in an apartment, and I didn't grow up in an apartment, and it was kind of uncomfortable for me. But now I've had a lot of good experiences in apartments. It wasn't just like going through the emotional turmoil as a 10-year-old and my parents getting divorced, because that's what that was. But it's been a lot more of living with host families and having friends in Finland and having dinner parties and having people over. So maybe I see apartments as more of a community space at this point. Like, if I have my own apartment by myself and it's mine, I can invite whoever I want over at any time. I can have people over for dinner. I can control the space. It can look how I want. And I don't have people judging my outfits when I walk out of the house. That does happen. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's very annoying. Even though, as I say, I wear pajamas 90% of the time. Like right now, I'm wearing pajamas. That's why I'm lucky I get to work from home. That kind of stuff. Or like, what else do I not like? Just kind of feeling like my actions are generally being scrutinized. That's very annoying. Nobody likes that. Okay, so I think that like living in an apartment could be cool. But the really cool thing about this particular apartment, because at first I'm like, I really don't want one bedroom, I really want 2 bedrooms, you know. But then I was like, look, man, and also this one doesn't allow for a dog, which sucks. But I was like, this is going to be a shorter term thing. If I want to go back and forth between Finland and the US for like, you know, a couple years or something, like the payment on this is actually less than that of rent. And if it's a payment, even if it's on a mortgage and there's a percentage and you're wasting money on the percentage, whatever, the payment is still less somehow than like the average rent price in the area where I live. So I'm like, okay, if I'm leaving this thing vacant for half a year and I'm not like, in there, and I just leave all my stuff there and I can come back to it. That's going to give me a peace of mind, and also the fact that it's cheaper. And also it's very close to where I already live. So there's all that. So right now I'd say my current dream, which has just happened in literally the last couple days, because basically my dad started putting extreme pressure on me, like, you need to move out by this day. And I'm like, where am I going, dude? Then we were like, we're going to put my stuff in a storage unit, and I was going to do a winter rental. And then I was like honest with myself, right? Which, like, it's hard to be honest with other people because they respond to you. But I was like, I don't want to keep moving. Like, I want to, like, buy a place so I can more or less get stuck in there for as long as I feel like, until I evict myself, right? Like, I want to be in control of that situation. And quite frankly, I can. Like, with what this would cost, like, I have enough to be in control of that situation. And if this doesn't go through, then I'm just going to pray that something else will work out. Because sometimes I always joke, like, God likes to be like 11th hour man and be like, oh, now I'm going to have this work out, like, right when you were already stressing about it for 500 years. Ugh, yeah, it'd be like that. I don't even know, man. I don't know what to say about that one. But again, that's if you believe in God, which I do, right? So, got to start with that. I don't know what you believe happens if you're an atheist. Is it like a universe thing? I don't know. Feel free to comment, because I know a lot of Finnish people are. Okay, so I'm trying to manifest that right now before the $800,000 house thing. That's like a down the road item. And I realize, I'd rather have the flexibility to travel and the lack of expense around a very expensive house, which I can't afford now anyway. So it doesn't matter. It's like not an option. So that I can be in a good energy field space. Like, that sounds really weird, but like, I'm controlling my space. And so like, it feels very zen with like my own energy. And then I can have greater career advancement and somehow figure out how to make more money. And then I can figure out how to like make all the other things in my life happen, and then it's gonna like all come together, right? Like, I can just let go of all the weird family drama tension from living in a house with 6 people, even though I stay in my room 90% of the time. I actually like avoid going into the kitchen just because of that. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, me and my brother both say that. It's sad. I'm just being honest, And I think, this is another dream. Like, I really want a parent radically different than my parents have. And I think a lot of people have that feeling, right? They're like, I liked that experience and I'm going to, do something similar, or I really hated it and I'm going to change it. And I'm more of the camp of, I really want to change it. So what do I want to change? Bad feelings are feelings, and we need to accept all feelings, right? And I think that that's kind of hard because Americans are very like, everything needs to have a happy ending, including The Little Mermaid. I've mentioned this before, but like the Danish Little Mermaid, she kills herself at the end, and I remember watching that as a kid and being like traumatized, and I'm like, why? That's because Disney doesn't teach us to believe that there's any option but an unhappy ending. And yeah, sometimes things don't work out, and sometimes your feelings are not the best feelings, and like, that's okay. Like, there should be no shame in being like, hey, I feel really terrible. I like don't know how to fix this. Like, you just need people to validate your feelings so you can work through them. When you live in a family or a society, more or less, where people are just so like in denial about things being bad sometimes, I think there comes to be a lot of shame with negative emotions, and then you kind of carry them around more. It's like a really heavy rock, like you're just constantly carrying around. I don't know. So I want to normalize like talking about bad emotions, but talking about good emotions too. So there's that. And not putting limits. I don't know. But mostly around like normalizing negative feelings, because I think it's sort of like you just have to like recognize them to move past them, and like you can't move past something if you're in denial about it. I don't think that's how that works. All right, so there's all that. I just kind of want to create my own energy force field within my own apartment in America, in New Jersey, where I already live, because I think that would make me feel better. And I think it's okay to have that as a dream. And that's more of an immediate goal / dream, but that's how I feel. I was really trying to like come up with other ideas, make other things work out. But as much as my dad's like, you shouldn't buy, I don't care. It's not his life. Okay. Like, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm trying to do. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to keep trying until it happens. And that's like how I've always been. And when I think about what are qualities about myself that make me actually feel good about myself, that's one of them. Is like, if I want something, I do not give up on getting that thing. Now this works with like this kind of stuff. It doesn't work with people, right? And so that's kind of the next thing I want to talk about, is maybe like a relationship subsection, because I talked about like marriage as a goal, right? And I think that the only time I had a legitimate shot at getting married, I came to like deeply, I wouldn't even say dislike, but like not respect this person, right? And I was talking to my one friend about this and within more of a religious context, and she's like, yeah, in the Bible it says that the woman must have deep respect for her husband, right? So it's kind of hard to like date and marry somebody who you don't have respect for. And I could get into a whole laundry list of things that make me not respect somebody, but I don't really think that's the point of this video. Like, I don't know what that's going to accomplish. But I told my aunt in this vision of having the house with the dog and stuff, I was just like, I really, just want to be with somebody I don't hate. And I realized that framing was very negative, and she's like, no, you should frame it more positively, like you want to be with somebody you really like. But then, this morning I kind of, when I was laying in bed, because I was like, trying to go back to sleep, and then realized that I was like supercharged for the whole day and was like, I gotta go do a bunch of things, and that's how I'm feeling, and I gotta do the YouTube, and then get out the door, and then upload the YouTube, and then do the training, and then write this essay, and then go back to my SQL queries for work, and blah, 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 whatever, not important. But anyway, that's how my brain was going. But I really had to think about this one because this is kind of maybe the capstone of it. Because, relationships are important. I think in general in society, people place a very high, I don't know the word, premium, maybe, that's a good word for it, on having a romantic relationship. And, as much as we don't like to have the discussion about this, there's a lot of, well, maybe this is a me problem. There are a lot of not traditional relationships these days, right? Like, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the meme, but I kind of love this meme because I think it's hilarious and unfortunately true. It's like the polyamorous relationship because 2 incomes is no longer enough. It's funny, but you know what? It's a thing. So there are a lot of not traditional things going on these days, different kinds of families, and it's just how it is. There's a lot of blended families, there's a lot of divorce, there's a lot of gender other categories, right? There's a lot of people not necessarily subscribing to like heteronormative norms. Yes, like there are all these things that go on with this that make it so that this previous standard is not let's say as widely accepted as it was before. It is the way society is, right? But I would say that I still kind of want to go for the standard, so I'm going to be honest with that. Okay, so there is that. But going back to the friends thing, it's like I already don't want to see people as much as they want to see me. And to be honest, I think this is just general burnout, exhaustion. Like people, I had somebody who was a psychology professor explain this to me. And it's like anytime you have an interaction with somebody, it is an energy exchange, right? And it does take energy to like, give people like your time and attention. And it's like I have this issue where so it's unclear to me whether this comes from a personality disorder thing or like, I don't like talking about this, but having had some like, let's say abusive like stuff in childhood, that like I have like a very strong susceptibility to like feeling other people's emotions, and it's very draining and exhausting, and like, oh my gosh, like for instance, being in a relationship with somebody with whom I can constantly feel their emotions can be very exhausting, okay? Or somebody who's constantly throwing their emotions at me and I'm supposed to like react and validate them. And so again, this gets a lot more into like some personality disorder space, and I think that's kind of like an issue I'm going to be forthcoming about is probably the people I've been closest to. It has been some sort of like personality disorder alignment. I still don't remain convinced or unconvinced that that is one of the things that I'm dealing with, because, there can be, yes, I have read that it's like, is it autism or is it a personality disorder? Whatever. But the point is, it's like people I have been very close to or people I've wanted to be very close to, in the end, it's never worked out. Like, that's kind of been my experience, is that like, wow, this is so great for like 6 months to a year, and then it implodes. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've had how many of those happen to me in like the last 3 years? I'm gonna count. Okay, maybe only 4. Only 4 in 3 years? That's like more than 1 a year. Okay, that's a lot. And with the last one especially, I tried really hard to set a lot of space between that one, and it still didn't work. So I have like this major phobia at this point of getting close to people, and that's something I'm gonna need to work through myself. But what I realized is, growing up the way I did, I have a hard time asserting needs, okay? Like, or I feel like I still have a hard time talking about how I feel, like, or just expressing my views and like opinions on things. Like all of these things that I just listed are usually met with a lot of negative reaction from family members. Like it doesn't matter if it's like my parents or my other relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Like this is just kind of how it goes. And people can say what they want. I think that it's just, it gets to be like too much for people. So I guess what I kind of want is somebody who feels like I'm not too much for them, but also they're not too much for me. And I feel like that's a tall order, because I feel like in these closer relationships, I have tried to assert like, hey, I need space. Hey, I have a really important deadline. Hey, I need this. And then a lot of times it's just met with like, you're disrespecting the relationship or something like that, like where it's like those needs are not being honored. And I think that's kind of why I've gotten to a point where I'm just like, yeah, sometimes I wish like I had somebody with me when I'm like, going on all these trips. I mean, I guess that was a nice thing about traveling with my one BFF. Like right now, like, going back to Armenia or going back to Kyrgyzstan, something I've been wanting to do for years. It's just, it sucks that like I have all this work and I pretty much need to get it done now, because there are a lot of things that are going to happen also in the next year with like, the moving and blah. So I'm really trying to like get some of my PhD stuff out of the way. Long story short, but anyway, doesn't matter. It's just like sometimes I wish somebody was there, but then there's also like knowing the alternative of like just how much these relationships can be really, toxic. Unfortunately, maybe I'm toxic too, whatever. We're all toxic in our own ways. I think somebody said that to me. I was like, nah, that's based. I was like, that's true. But like, I'm just happier being by myself. Like right now I'm like by myself in this apartment. I went to sleep. I woke up when I wanted to. I went to sleep when I wanted to. Like I didn't have to like coordinate with somebody like, hey, where do you want to go for breakfast? Whatever. And that's kind of the thing I've always enjoyed about being alone or like traveling alone. And then, I do meet people and I do have relationships with people, and like I have a lot of friends, and that's kind of the space that I feel safer, happier in, the space that I function at the best, space in which I function the best, whatever. But so I think part of it is like, while I do want a relationship, it's like I want like a very low maintenance relationship. I think one of the more recent like relationships I tried to get into was more like, this person worked a lot, so I thought it would be fine, and then it wasn't, and I was like, okay. And that's like going for friendship stuff too. Like it's just, no, that is a thing. It's like sometimes I'm like, all right, this guy works a lot, so he's not going to want like that much time and attention from me. But then I also feel like I can never actually like meet the time and attention. And I feel like sometimes it's like, hey, I have this until this time. Can we set aside time for this? And like scheduling stuff, like I think that's really important, and you both agree on it, but you also have to both honor it. Like this is hard. And then things come up, and then how adaptable and flexible are you? And the reality is people with autism are not very. Like, I'm going to tell you that, and I've seen that, and I've experienced that. I think for me, the fact that I traveled a lot and I had a lot of ambiguous situations made it so that I had to become more adaptable. But I essentially got used to things not going the way I had planned from like the age of 21 when I started traveling around Kyrgyzstan and then Armenia and then all these other places. Dealing with people in different cultures, and also in a language you're still learning, there's a lot of stuff that you don't understand what's going on. So I think that's that. I think also I need somebody smarter than me. The problem is I'm like slightly smarter than average, so that knocks out a lot of candidates. And then also, being attracted to people is really hard. Like nobody believes me with that, I feel like. And also like people, right, my channel is predominantly men, so I actually had this thought, like, why do people go to Andrew Tate to listen to him like give advice about women? Like, shouldn't you listen to a woman? But then people are like, women don't know what they want. Like, all right, well, you know what, if you study psychology, you're gonna have a clear understanding of what each sex actually wants, if you're gonna look at it strictly from like that kind of perspective and not like gender anormative experiences. But women have to be a lot more careful about who they get involved with. This is a biological and reproductive need. Men are just going to shoot their shot, as my friend says, because they figure that most women are not going to respond. And that's the reality. Most women are not going to respond. However, we still live in a lot of cultures where men are expected to be macho. They're expected to show interest first. And this kind of sucks, right? Because I don't like, as a woman, being put in a position where like I have to reject people, and I feel really like bad about this, but at the same time I don't like them. Or I feel bad about being in relationships where then it's like I'm breaking up with this person because I realize I really rather not spend the rest of my life with this person. Like, all these things can be hard, and I think at this point there is a level of frustration with everybody in the dating pool, because things are changing. The internet is changing things, right? Like I explained the thing about parasocial relationships yesterday. It's like this is like the new norm, and it's like people have an ability to not get hurt as much. Like people are less willing to take risks. It's safer for me to sit on my computer and, you know, engage with like somebody on the internet. It's kind of like, it reminds me of all those movies where it's like somebody, like your perfect match gets created and it's like a computer and it's not a real person. Like that's kind of how life is starting to feel now. And so that's the thing, is I think realistically it's like you're never going to get everything you want in a person. So it comes down to how well can you communicate your needs, and can you like this person? I just feel like I'm at this point where liking people is really hard, because I've just like been going through a lot recently, like in terms of like mostly the housing thing, but like, you know, just in terms of how I feel like I've been treated by other people for all sorts of different reasons. And, you know, I think it's okay to take a break from it, and just, I need to get, like I said, I need to retransform my energy force field and turn it into something. I don't even care how crazy that sounds, you know, turn it into something where I feel like I can go back out and like put my best foot forward into the world again. And I can't do that right now when I'm like in survival mode trying to avoid everybody. Like that's not happening. Like I need to make some changes, and it's sort of, so I love the Diary of a CEO. Like watching his interviews is so cool. Like I literally feel like I aspire to be this dude. I need to get a little studio for that, but you know, he's interviewing like different people about so many different things, right? And some of the topics are about relationships, and there's this one where he's talking about like the more I started investing in myself, the more that like I started drawing people to me, like in a romantic sense. So it's like he was in London, he was poor and working at a call center, and like he couldn't afford to go take a woman out on a date and pay. So he was kind of like, okay, I need to like go to the gym, get more money, all this stuff. And then eventually he was able to like, you know, find a partner, whatever. So that's cool. Like I like that. So I think I'm at a point where it's like, yeah, you know, I wanted to like transition straight into like getting married, like moving out of the house and then getting married. But like, that's not the way that like my cards were dealt. Okay. And looking back, you know, I think that sometimes other adults will like, dude, I don't even know, like try to like criticize or guide or give advice or whatever, like lots of different things for kids. Like I kind of, for teenagers, really. You know, I was having this discussion with my one friend about how it's like, you know, I legitimately was probably not interested in boys until at least my 20s, just because I was too busy focusing on myself. And I think maybe I've regressed or reverted to like my teenage self, but most adults were not doing that. Okay, so most adults would try to have conversations with me, and I have mentioned this already, and I'm just like, I'm not interested. Like, I don't get like why you're talking to me about this. And I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, I just want to go back to that and focusing on like the things that I can control, and then eventually like the relationship part works itself out, because this is what I'm trying to say is it's like the only thing in your life that you cannot like force to come true. Like you can increase your statistics, right? Like I had somebody say to me, if you go on like 500 dates, the odds of you finding somebody you like are pretty high, but like I've never really tried to intentionally find somebody, and maybe that's something that I'd have energy for when I'm like in a better place, right? Like things are more stable and organized and I'm feeling generally better about myself. But right now, like I don't have the energy for it, right? Like I did have energy more for like relationships and friendships when I was living in Finland, but like at this point I just don't. And I think like that's okay. And like it will pass, you know, like things pass. And I think like having a clearer understanding of like what you like and what you want, it's like I feel like I've met people who in some ways are pretty close to what I want, but it's, you know, still hard. I think attraction is the hardest part, because like for women supposedly you can build it, but sometimes I just feel like a dude, I'm like I immediately know whether I'm attracted to this person or not, and that's how men are. Yeah, I don't know. So now I'm on cup number 2. But yeah, I was trying to say before also about how I think with women, like, you know, men kind of think that certain tactics are going to work on women. And I think this is hard because you have to get to the point where you understand that everybody is an individual, but you also have to get to the point that, like, sometimes people just don't like you, and that's okay. And sometimes you don't like other people, and that's okay. And I think that's the thing that's really hard. Like, my friend was explaining, you have to get, like, a 1-to-1 match, and, like, that can be the really hard part. Also, yeah, this friend has been, like, trying to get me to go live with her while I'm gonna, you know, like, get my act together for buying something, but I'm just beginning to realize like how hard it would be for me to like uproot my life in New Jersey, because like that is where my life is. Like I think I would move somewhere for a partner like a husband, but like it doesn't really make sense for me to do that to go be with a friend. And I think this is the other thing that I was thinking, like, kind of makes me feel trapped, is when people like want that level of integration with me in their life, where it's like we see each other every day, we talk to each other every day. And like I did have friends like that when I was living in Finland, but looking back, honestly, like it did make me feel trapped. I remember constantly, like, I would have only a couple friends and I'm like, I need more friends. Like, and then I finally did make more friends like 3 months before I left, maybe 6 months before I left. And I was like, cool, I finally created the life I wanted here, and now I have to leave. Like, literally, that's why I cried so much the whole week before I left. Aside from the fact that, you know, like, I did just like my life there, and that's why, like, I'm still there, right? Because I, like, liked it, even though this is the philosophy I always say, if everybody in your life died, would you still want to live where you live? So there is a consideration for, like, the space itself and all the other elements around it. But yeah, the one-to-one match is hard, so I guess my advice would be just don't take it personally. Like, people are not going to like you, and people will like you, and then it's okay that you don't like them. And I guess I'm saying this to myself too, because sometimes it's really hard for me to be like, you know, it's not like I think that's the thing, as autistic as I am and as direct as I like to be in certain situations, like, I will really try to be nice until it gets to a point where it's like, if somebody is very aggressively being like, trying to get with me and I'm like, I don't like you, and then I would, like, in extreme instances I will block somebody, but that usually takes me quite a bit of energy to get there because I'm really pretty anti-blocking, to be honest. I like to let people block themselves. That sounds weird, but, you know, just like not giving a lot to respond to, I guess, is the way to put it. But yeah, so I think it's just very I think the relationship part is hard. I think that's like what I'm trying to say, is it can be very hard to find that one-to-one match, and every time I've found that one-to-one match, it's ended pretty badly. So that's kind of why I'm like not really interested in that right now. I'm just sort of interested in protecting my energy and my space and just letting it happen when it's the right time, which I don't think I've ever really been in this position in life, and it's kind of a weird feeling. I think it's like the hope of moving out, because I think I've always wanted to move out, and it's like, and I don't like the fact that it's being done against my will, like me being kicked out, but at the same time, I think it's just, you know, I want to feel like I have control and autonomy, and like, I want to feel good about myself again. Like, I think everybody wants that, and I've said this as my philosophy: the world would be a lot better of a place if everybody just felt good about themselves. So whatever you need to do, whatever people you need to put yourself around to feel better about yourself, do that. And that's something I've been trying really hard with myself, because sometimes I think, you know, it's like I got really used to people trying to control me or insulting me, and these are the people I ended up really close with because that felt familiar. But I'm like, I don't have to do that anymore. Like, I'm an adult, I can make my own choices, and that's like a hard reality to like cognitively understand. So I guess those are my dreams. In summary, I want to own something right now, and I think that's okay to admit. So I'm working on that. I'm like literally praying so hard that that's gonna work out, because that's going to like give me so much lifting of a burden of anxiety for a long time. So there's that. You know, get through all my things, eventually get the really expensive nice house wherever that's not really expensive, it's just like what I grew up in, and it's like, oh, maybe it's white privilege. I don't know, but like, you know, just normal people stuff. I don't know though, this next generation is so screwed financially. I can't even pretend like that's actually normal at this point. Oh, having a house, haha, good one. Who has a house these days? Nobody except the boomers. All right, sorry, that was a little bit uncalled for. Get the nice house, eventually maybe find somebody I like, or not, just enjoy my life the way it is. You know, keep traveling to an extent, but not the way I've been doing. And keep my level of relationship interactions at where I want it, and keep enjoying those relationships. And keep reaching my goals. Like, you know, I want Finnish citizenship, I need to work on becoming fluent in Finnish, and I think I'm going to reach all my goals. So I'm feeling really good about this. I know right now it's a rough patch, but sometimes focusing on like, what do you want long term, and then taking steps to actually, you know, do that. And, you know, I had some comment to me, you know, with all this housing stuff, about being decisive. I am decisive about understanding that what I want right now is to own something. And I'm sorry if everybody else around me thinks that that's a dumb, unattainable idea. I am not going to stand for that. And I think that's where I'm at right now. And if that's going to change to me owning something else down the road, that's cool too. But really, what I want right now is that. And I'm just going to focus on that. And then I feel like once I get past that, then I can start focusing on other things. You know, my dad was kind of disappointed in me in the sense that he's like, you feel like you always have to be reaching for the next thing. And my question becomes, is that necessarily a bad thing? I've accomplished a lot of things, right? So I was also saying earlier that I think that people look at younger people and then they're like, oh, you know, I don't know if they're jealous. I don't know if they're like yearning for lost time. But like when I look back at my life, I really don't have any regrets, right? And it's like, okay, whatever. But like what I mean is, it's like I have done a lot of really cool things. Like I realized at a young age the most important thing to me was my memories, and having those memories of being in Kyrgyzstan, having those memories of being in Armenia, having those memories of doing all different exchange programs, of going to NASA, of meeting different people, of exploring the world, of traveling. Like that is what is most valuable to me. And I look back and I feel nothing but happiness and satisfaction and pride, maybe, like if we want to use that word, about like what I've done and who I am, and like, you know, just the fact that like I do have people all over the world who like love me and want to see me and want to be friends with me. Like that does make me feel good about myself. And it's like, I'm sorry sometimes if my family can't see that, and that's their problem and not mine. And I get when you're living with somebody, you're seeing the nastiest side of them. So there is that, right? We have to think about that, because you never really know a person until you live with them. I mean, that's the unfortunate reality. There's a lot of surprises there. I feel like my roommate right now, I know more about than I expected, mostly in terms of like habits, right? You're like, this person is not always picking up their dirty socks. Like that's a dumb example, and that's not even true, but like whatever. So I think, yeah, there's that. Like I do feel happy about everything I've accomplished, and when I try to think about that, like all the positive things in my past, and I think about I have so many opportunities for positive things in my future moving forward, like that makes me feel really good. So, you know, yeah, like I've been told it's like, oh, a gratitude thing, you have to focus on what you're appreciative of. And like, yeah, I'm very appreciative for all the experiences I've had. I don't always like the fact that I've been pushed really hard. I feel like there's been a lot of like criticism of me growing up, or a lot of like coercing me into like behaving a certain way, and that honestly doesn't make me feel that great. But at the same time, I try to think about I would never have been probably where I am without having had that experience. And I like where I am, and I like where I'm going, because it's exactly where I want to be going. And you know, the relationship piece, like I've said, while that's a goal, it's such a small part of like what the overall goal is and all the important things I want to accomplish. I think people fail to realize that like when you're in a relationship, your relationship is not your entire identity. When you become a parent, that is not your entire identity. Like you are still an individual. You still have your own needs, your own likes, your own dislikes, your own concerns, and being true to yourself about what those things are, I think is most important, regardless of what situation you end up in. So being honest with myself about, I'm not going to feel secure until I own something that I can pay a mortgage on. And if I want to leave there and go on a trip, I'm not feeling guilty that I'm paying rent on something I'm not staying in. That's how I feel right now. I don't like moving. I don't want to move. I need to work on getting rid of some of my crap and selling it online. That's a goal. It hasn't been reached yet, but maybe once I'm in a better energy force field space, that's going to happen. You know, who knows? So I can't say for sure, but I don't know, maybe this was just very cathartic in terms of like, maybe I feel like if I assert over the internet all the things that I want to get, I'm going to manifest it, right? Like, because it's worked for me in my life, like working at NASA, getting a Boren scholarship to go to Kyrgyzstan, getting actually the Fulbright was kind of in the bag because I already knew how to write those scholarship essays by then. That one like just kind of came really easily. But the other two were hard, getting into NASA and getting into Kyrgyzstan for the Boren scholarship. I had to apply for the Boren scholarship twice. But all these things make me feel really great about my life, and like they're really important to me. And I do believe that like whatever the really hard thing is I'm trying to get, like I will get it, and it's going to be okay in the end. And I don't know why I'm so positive right now, even though I'm probably sleep deprived, but whatever. So yeah, I encourage you, if you're watching this long ranty video, to also manifest your dreams, whatever they are. Write them down, take steps towards them. And I guess because this is about my life to an extent, you can keep checking back in years from now. And if I keep doing YouTube, we'll see. Did I eventually learn Finnish? Did I eventually get my Finnish citizenship? Did I eventually get my $800,000 house? Did I eventually get my new dog? Obviously the most important one. Did I eventually actually get married? I don't know, that's kind of like a weird one to put on the internet. I'm very like, I don't like talking about like those kinds of things on the internet, so whatever. But I guess people on their channels do talk about their spouses. Yeah, actually no, I've seen that. Okay, whatever. What other ones? Yeah, those are big ones, right? So we'll see. So yeah, let's try manifesting that stuff, because it doesn't change my life that much, and that's exactly what I'm going for right now, because I already have way too many other things going on. All right, so if you got through this whole thing, congratulations. I think it's probably pretty boring listening to somebody talk about what their dreams are. But again, the point of this is write down your dreams, talk about your dreams, however you need to manifest your dreams, do it, and go out and reach your dreams. It's sort of like the scarcity versus the abundance mindset. I grew up with a scarcity mindset, and I'm trying really hard to reach the abundance mindset. So I'll let you know if it works. All right, until next time, bye.